Hi guys, welcome back to Skumar classes. As we had gone through credit default swap introduction in last video, I'll quickly recap. As we know, CDS is a sort of contract where one party who's taking an exposure into the debt of another reference entity, they are exposed to many risks. Credit risk is one of the risks where the reference entity can default, and hence they may not make as promised principal payments and coupon payments. To cover up this risk, to compensate for the credit risk, the credit protection buyer is the party who goes and take a CDS to cover up the credit risk, and hence pays a premium to credit protection seller, who is the provider of protection in case if the reference entity defaults on any of its payment. Credit protection seller will pay off the promised payments protection to the buyer. These two parties get involved with each other to mitigate credit risk, and we move on now to understand how the CDS contracts are standardized. So let's look at the how CDS payments are done. As we know, CDS contract, they compensate for the credit risk of a particular reference entity or a company against the default of their payment of principal and coupon. CDS coupons are basically standardized into two categories. One is 1%. 1% is basically for 1% for investment grade and 5% for high yield security. So let's assume there is a credit protection buyer A. Excuse me for the spelling mistake. So there is a credit protection buyer A, and there is other party which is B. So A has exposure to a reference entity, and he wants to cover up the risk of credit of the default of the company, and B is the credit protection seller. Now let's assume credit risk is anything but other than 1%, assuming it's an investment grade reference entity. Let's say risk is 1.25%. So this is basically we can also write it as 1250 basis points, BPS. Now A, who's buying this CDS, is supposed to pay 1% coupon payment on CDS, but B is providing a protection cover for a credit risk of 1.25%, which means A should be compensating more to B. And how much it should be? Excess of 0.25%, which means to get this cover done, A has to make a upfront payment to B of 0.25%. So basically in this case, for an investment grade CDS, A will keep paying 1% as a coupon payment, CDS coupon payment, and initially A will pay 0.25% extra of notional amount to B as a upfront payment. Remember this thing. Let's say actual risk is So now assume this is high yield security. RE is basically reference entity, A is credit protection buyer, and B is CDS seller. Seller means credit protection provider. Now let's say reference entity has a credit risk of 4%, but the CDS coupon payment we have for high yield security is 5%, which means A protection buyer is paying 5% to B, but the credit risk is only 4%. So basically credit protection buyer is paying excess to the B. So what credit protection seller has to make, he has to make upfront payment to the buyer, and that upfront payment would be a difference in between these two amount. It will be around 1%. Let's look at an example. So there is a reference entity whose credit risk is 75 basis point, which is 0.75%. Now as explained before, there is a credit protection buyer and credit protection seller. This is an investment grade security. So if you remember, for investment grade security, CDS coupon amount is 1%. So here CDS buyer A has to pay 1% to B for a credit risk coverage, which is actually 0.75%. So which means A is paying excess to B. So A is supposed to receive upfront payment from credit protection seller. So who pays the payment is credit protection seller to credit protection buyer of an amount of 1 minus 0.75%, which is 0.25%. After this example, let me also focus on this point. Credit default swap has characteristics like a put option. If you remember, put option is the option when the price of a security goes down, then holder of this option exercise it. So you basically, the holder of the option gets payout when price of a property drops or the condition gets worsened. So CDS works like similarly. CDS payment happens in case of a default in payment. So if there is a credit default on either on any coupon payment or principal payment by the borrower entity. Remember this coupon and principal payment is not related to CDS coupon payment. CDS coupon payment is 1% for investment grade, 5% for high yield securities, and it has nothing to do with the coupon payment or principal payment paid by the borrower on their debt obligations. In the next video, we will move further in CDS and we will cover CFA level 2 material. Thank you.